Hello, and welcome to this week's module. This week, we're going to be talking about, among other things, we're going to be talking about the exclusionary rule. You'll see some materials in there for viewing about the exclusionary rule, which is, when we talk about that, we talk about obviously something is being excluded. We're talking about things being excluded from search and seizure principles that are laid out in the Constitution. The Constitution, specifically the Bill of Rights, says that we're to be free from unreasonable searches and seizures from by the government. And so it doesn't say that we're going to be free from all searches and seizures, just the unreasonable ones. And the exclusionary rule is for lack of a better word, the penalty, the government's penalty, if they violate the unreasonableness of these searches and seizures. So this week I want to talk about how the government, specifically law enforcement, how they get to have an opportunity, a lawful reason or lawful search, as opposed to an unreasonable one that's laid out in the Fourth Amendment of the Constitution. So let's what I like to do when I'm laying these out for students. I think acronyms are oftentimes a great way to remember things. And this week we're going to talk about an acronym called SPICE, and that is the five primary ways that there are exceptions to the unreasonableness of searches and seizures. So SPICE, SPICE, and we'll go over these quickly in this video. So the first one we'll talk about is the S, search warrants. Obviously, if a law enforcement officer or the government has a search warrant, they have a lawful reason to conduct a search, and that search warrant has to be signed off by a magistrate who's unbiased, not related to the investigation and whatnot. And there are some rules that are laid out on how to obtain these search warrants, but that's going to be the first one we talk about. Search warrants are absolutely a lawful exception to the Fourth Amendment. The next one, the P, is probable cause. Now that's only about half of the true title of that exception. It's actually the probable cause exception to vehicle searches. So probable cause in general doesn't always give the government enough to search. Probable cause will give them enough to go to the first one, the search warrant. The government can, with enough probable cause, go to a magistrate, lay out their probable cause, and the magistrate can approve a search. But why do we have a P if probable cause is covered in the search warrant? It's because it's actually an exemption to vehicles specifically, not homes, not people. If a government official, a law enforcement officer thinks that there's probable cause to believe there's contraband in your home, in general, they need to go get a search warrant. Probable cause isn't enough to be an exception. If they think you have probable cause on your person secreted, they may not be able to always conduct a search. They may need a search warrant. But vehicles are different. Vehicles move. If a law enforcement officer believes that there is contraband in a vehicle or evidence to a crime in a vehicle, and they go and they leave and write up a search warrant, and then go to the courthouse and have a sign, and then come back to search that vehicle, there's a good chance that vehicle might be gone. It's got wheels, it's got an engine, it can roll away, it can be driven away, and then the investigation is altered from that. So case law has given the government an opportunity to search vehicles specifically, the probable cause exception for vehicle searches. They can search vehicles with probable cause and without a search warrant. The next one is I, incident to arrest. Incident is just a fancy way of saying because of or after an arrest. So if somebody is placed under arrest, under custodial arrest, going to be taken to a jail, a confinement facility, the government has the lawful ability to search that person's clothing and their person to ensure there's no contraband being brought into the confinement facility. So I is incident to arrest. But incident, again, not a word that we use a lot. We usually would say something along the lines of because of or after an arrest. But that's the I. The fourth one is C, consent. Obviously, if the government or a law enforcement officer asks a person, hey, can I search your house? Can I search your pockets? Can I search your car? They don't need probable cause. They don't need a search warrant. If consent is given, consent trumps all. Now, consent can also be revoked or it can be limited, and the government can't use that as evidence of a crime. If somebody were to say, tell the government official that asked if they could search their house, yes, you can search everything here except for that closet right there. Well, you may be suspicious that they said that, but the government can't use that suspicion to say, well, they didn't let us search there, so there must be something there. Let's go get a search warrant. No, consent is truly that is freely, voluntarily given. So C for consent. And the final one, another strange word that we don't use a lot, E for exigent circumstances. Exigent just means it's a fancy way of saying emergency. If there is a fire in somebody's house, the law enforcement officials or the government can go into that house to quell that emergency. If somebody's choking and a police officer walks down the sidewalk to see somebody choking and they rush into the house to help them, that's just an emergency. They're allowed to break that threshold because of exigent circumstances. Now, what happens after they enter? If they enter and they see a big pile of cocaine on the kitchen table, now there's going to have to be additional steps taken. If they want to search the rest of the house, again, additional steps taken. But to quell an emergency, an exigent circumstance, the government can enter into a dwelling or trying to think if there's any other examples of that. I guess a commercial establishment as well. Uh, if there's an emergency happening in a vehicle, things like that. It wouldn't necessarily happen. They wouldn't have occasion to use the exigent circumstances to search a person. It'd be hard to articulate that a person is having an emergency and you need to get into their pockets to save them. Things like that. Maybe medication. I'm just kind of spitballing here. But that those are your five primary exceptions. I call that the spice chart. And oftentimes, if you're in one of my classes, I hand that chart out and we go over it. But SPICE, search warrant, probable cause exemption to vehicles, incident to arrest, consent, and exigent circumstances. With that, I will look forward to reading this week's assignments. And if you have any questions, by all means, as always, please don't hesitate to reach out. Rock